Hi, I'm personal trainer Yuji.
Do you all want to have a fit body? When you think of a fit body, what kind of physique comes to mind? Or if you want to achieve a fit body, how do you envision yourself? Generally, when people say they want to get fit through weight training, they often think about wanting defined abs, building pectoral muscles, or making their arms thicker. This reflects the visible aspects that people usually focus on. So, what I want to talk about today is that while my thoughts on my stomach and arms remain the same as when I was younger, the question is whether I can still achieve a fit appearance. After turning 50, I believe that it's not the same as what I thought when I was younger, and I think there are different directions to consider. First, regarding the desire to have defined abs, I want to discuss that. Once you pass 50, it's something that everyone experiences. Body fat becomes harder to lose. My body fat in particular is especially difficult to shed. I really feel it myself. A former bodybuilder who is around the same age as me, who works as a trainer, says the same thing. There's something strange about the area below the navel. Fat that never used to accumulate is now becoming easier to gain. Even Tamura, the physique world champion who appeared on this channel recently, mentioned that he has been noticing an increase in body fat around his stomach lately. Even with rigorous training, it seems that from around the age of 50, it becomes easier to gain fat. This makes it increasingly challenging to achieve defined abs, especially for regular people who aren't in this line of work. Achieving visible abs becomes quite a difficult issue. To have defined abs, you generally need to have a body fat percentage below 10%. Otherwise, they won't be visible. It's a very difficult issue, and I think it's something that is already well understood. However, even if he works hard on his diet and loses weight, there are too many sacrifices involved. The sacrifices, for instance, occur when body fat is significantly reduced and he has properly incorporated recovery. When it's all said and done, the body is naturally predisposed to store fat in certain areas compared to others, so reducing it is challenging. Body fat tends to decrease uniformly in these areas. When you think this area has significantly reduced, you might expect this area to reduce as well. You might think that if the body fat decreases and this area becomes defined, it would be great. However, in reality, when that happens, the moisture in the muscles around this area decreases significantly, leading to a loss of firmness and thickness. As a result, while you want your stomach to be defined, it may end up looking just small and gaunt, which isn't very appealing. This area tends to become too thin, and that's unavoidable. So that's what we aim for. I don't think that's the case. Today, I want to talk about the fit body one should aim for after turning 50. This is just my opinion, but what is considered cool can vary greatly depending on individual aesthetic sensibilities. However, since I work in this field, I would like to share my personal thoughts on what a fit body should look like after 50. It's not just about training aimlessly. It's about having a clear direction in your overall approach. It is necessary to think about how to design the entire body while considering the training program. It's all about the overall design of the body. To illustrate, it looks something like this. Please take a look. This is for achieving such a physique. The theme is not just about getting defined abs, but rather revitalizing weakened areas. In fact, it's about counteracting deterioration and creating a body that defies gravity. I believe focusing on these themes will lead to a more impressive physique, first and foremost. Of course, I will reduce body fat. I will lower it to a certain extent, just enough to avoid looking too gaunt, as I mentioned earlier. In other words, I don't need to have perfectly defined abs, but rather a state where nothing is hanging over my belt. It's fine if it's hard to tell whether my abs are defined or not, as long as they are slightly visible when I flex. I think it's acceptable to aim for a body fat percentage that allows for that slight visibility. While it's necessary to reduce body fat to a certain level, I believe it's good to have a slight definition. Additionally, I think it's important to do abdominal exercises properly, so that when you touch them, they feel firm and have some definition. If that's the case, I can build volume in other areas as well, so it's better to keep body fat at that level. Rather than aiming for extreme definition, I should focus on tightening my core effectively. By working on my abs, I can increase the strength of my abdominal muscles. Therefore, engaging in high-level abdominal exercises is essential. you can firmly support your body, and with that, it allows you to perform other strength training exercises effectively. So rather than just aiming to get defined abs, you should think about tightening your core. When you want to tighten it, it can be done easily, and your muscle strength will be solid. I've also considered this aspect. Essentially, it's about engaging in recovery exercises. In this diagram, the shoulders are an important point. I mentioned revitalizing weakened areas and reversing the decline. Well, anyway, I regret the state of my shoulders. As you turn 50, your shoulders start to sag more and more. If you can develop firm and well-defined deltoids, it creates a significant gap between those who train and those who don't. People who properly train their shoulders have a noticeably different appearance compared to those who don't. The key is to create a gap between those who have declined or don't exercise and those who actively work on their fitness. So, it really comes down to looking cool. This aspect is absolutely essential. First, when you do shoulder training, you'll be doing exercises like lateral raises and shoulder presses, but make sure to do a solid number of sets. Please do it properly. Generally, people tend to focus a lot on the pectoral muscles, but if the number of sets for shoulders is less compared to the pectorals, then that's probably why the shoulders are lacking. The number of sets for shoulders should be about the same as for the pectorals, or at least close to it, especially if you're only combining 2 or 3 exercises. You can definitely achieve it, but if the number of sets for that particular area is low, it won't develop properly, so a sufficient number of sets is necessary. When training the shoulders, we approach it from 3 directions. The 3 directions include lateral movements, which target the side, and shoulder presses that focus on the front. There are exercises for all 3 months. Additionally, there are exercises for the back, and by working on the rear side as well, you can develop a well-rounded shoulder appearance from the front, side, and back. So, we focus on 3 directions: the center, front, and back. It is necessary to incorporate such exercises into your training. If you're using a split training method, that's fine. Instead of working on your entire body in one day, you can divide your training into 2 or 3 parts. For instance, you should use a split method that prioritizes shoulders first. You could create a day dedicated solely to shoulders, but that can make it challenging for the other muscle groups. However, if you designate a day for both chest and shoulders, you can prioritize shoulders first, as the chest tends to take precedence. To effectively prioritize shoulder workouts, one should incorporate exercises that pair shoulders with other muscle groups, such as back, legs, or arms. This method creates a focus on shoulders from the beginning, ensuring that when performing shoulder training, you have plenty of energy. It's about structuring the program in a way that allows you to start with shoulders first. Additionally, to build a body that defies gravity, it's essential to properly engage the areas close to the shoulders, which means focusing on the chest. There are people who work on creating a shape that expands upwards from the back, forming what is known as an inverted triangle. This inverted triangle is in conjunction with the shoulders. Therefore, it is essential to focus on the pectoral muscles. But as I mentioned earlier, one should not prioritize the chest alone. In other words, do not spend too much time solely on the chest. Many people tend to do a lot of sets for the pectoral muscles. You can often see them at the gym, dedicating a significant amount of time to the chest, maybe around 30 minutes, while spending only about 7 minutes on shoulders and finishing back workouts quickly. This is quite common. In that regard, it's okay to spend a bit less time on the chest, but I want you to focus more on the shoulders. I hope you pay attention to the importance of not falling into the trap of overtraining. I think what you've been doing so far is fine. Also, while training the back is necessary, I want you to avoid just summarizing it as back training. What I want to develop is the width of the back, particularly around the area where the upper arm connects to the torso. The best exercise for that is pull-ups. Diving is the best. Doing pull-ups really engages the sides, especially around the armpits. This is why pull-ups are the most effective. They help create that width. I understand that some people may not be able to do pull-ups, but if you can't, you can simply stand on your toes from this position and lower yourself down. Just lowering from your toes is fine. Alternatively, you can jump up a little and then lower yourself down. Just jumping up and then coming back down is also good. Make sure to lower yourself slowly. Just doing this is already sufficient training, so if you approach it this way, you can effectively develop the width of your back, particularly around the sides. It's important to create a body that defies gravity by working on the back and shoulders together. Additionally, let's not forget about the glutes. It's essential to strengthen the glutes as well, as they can easily sag, just like the shoulders. While men might not pay much attention to their glute muscles, it's crucial to remember that if they sag, it can be noticeable in men. As you become flat and lose everything, you need to reverse this process. By focusing on training the muscles you want to enhance, you can work on your glutes while also emphasizing the upper half of your legs, rather than just treating them as regular legs. In other words, when you go to the gym, it's better to prioritize this type of leg training. There seems to be an unspoken rule that you must always do leg extensions and leg curls, but it's not necessarily the case that you have to do leg extensions and curls. Rather, let's set that aside for now. Exercises like Bulgarian squats and alternating back lunges are important. It's crucial to focus on movements that involve standing up from a squat. When performing these squatting and standing exercises, it tends to engage the upper half of the legs, particularly the inner thighs, and the area close to the hip joint. This engagement naturally contributes to pushing strength as well. Therefore, it's better to focus on strengthening these areas, as there are solid teachings regarding this. You can create sharp-looking legs by doing extensions, but if you focus on squatting and standing up, you'll develop the strength and body needed for movement. I want you to prioritize that. It's not that you shouldn't do extensions. Doing them lightly, around 3 centimeters, is fine. However, after turning 50, you might be busy and find it hard to find time, so it's important to consider that, well, it really comes down to what you choose to do or not do. So, while doing full leg workouts might be good, there isn't enough time for that. Instead, it's better to focus on exercises like Bulgarian squats and regular squats, dedicating sufficient time to those, and also working on glute exercises to build that area effectively. As for extensions, they can be postponed. It's really about how you use your time and what you prioritize, so it's important to approach leg training with that in mind. When you perform exercises like squatting and standing up, you effectively engage your abdomen and lower back, which naturally improves your posture. Therefore, it's better to focus on such exercises rather than spending too much time on curls. This approach enhances your overall silhouette. It's important to consider these factors when choosing exercises. Strengthening areas like the shoulders, chest, back, and glutes will help create a physique that defies gravity and age. You need to create a strong image that goes against the effects of aging. Since it's inexpensive to build that area properly, you really need to train it thoroughly. You have to spend time on it, and as a result, time can become quite limited. Right now, I'm not focusing at all on the biceps or triceps. Also, the execution of curls isn't something I prioritize at the beginning. Additionally, I'm not working on the calves either. So, in terms of time management, I spend ample time on this area, but I don't allocate time to that area right now. I think it's important to consider the program with a clear prioritization. So it's not that you shouldn't work with Isono-san. However, as I mentioned earlier, if you try to do everything while properly addressing the areas I talked about, your training time could end up being an hour and a half or even 2 hours. That becomes difficult because there isn't enough time for that. Therefore, it's important to first focus on the weakened areas I mentioned. To create a body that effectively defies gravity, prioritize working on those areas first. By doing so, you'll be able to build a more impressive physique, especially when you're engaging in your own training. Well, when looking at different parts, I want to focus on how to enhance them. It's not just about adding to specific areas. We need to think about how to complete the overall silhouette. So I want you to consider the fundamentals rather than just the parts. Also, when it comes to the back, I want you to think about which areas to target while selecting exercises. Additionally, as I mentioned, deadlifts are essential. Lifting from this position with deadlifts helps strengthen the lower back and maintain good posture. This also contributes to shaping the silhouette. So, while considering the overall design, what aspects should we prioritize in the program? Please think about it. In that sense, there are specific ways to build a fit body after turning 50, and I recommend doing it this way. So please consider revising your own program while keeping this in mind. Let's do our best together. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I'm also active on Instagram, so please follow me. This was Personal Trainer 20. Go, go!